Well, hello, my name is Georgie Newbery and I am a flower farmer and florist based between fashionable Bruton and up and coming Wincanton here in sunny Somerset in southwest England. And today we're going to talk about taking cuttings, which is a bit of a subject. I've just been talking about it over on the Instagram and I thought I'd do a little film for you guys too. It's a bit of a thing. People overcomplicate a lot of things with gardening. And my job, I think, is to simplify everything because the world, well, I think that it is often apparently in the interest of a lot of people to make things seem more complicated than they need be, because then you might pay them money to help you do it, when actually you can do very simply take a few cuttings and make some free plants. And especially if you're in the UK, where plant prices are going through the roof, we're all going to have to become much better propagators. So let's take a few bits and pieces and we will make some new plants. Here are some cuttings I took earlier. And so I'm going to quickly take some cuttings for you. Here is a clean pot. And I'm using a plastic pot, not because I think plastic is better, but because I have the national collection of plastic pots. When we moved here in 2004, my dear mother gave me a lifetime supply of pots with glee. You could see her going, no, here, you have them. Getting rid of them, she was. And since then, my plant buying habit has been frequent and sometimes uncontrolled. And so I really do have the national collection of plastic pots. And while I appreciate that single-use plastic is a really bad idea, I'm not going to throw my plastic pots in the bin until they're all broken, because they're perfectly useful and I didn't buy them. They just came my way. And so I'm going to use them until they are collapsing, and then they will go into landfill and take 500 years to disintegrate. But I have them, so I'm not going to throw them away and start using more resources to buy anything else to replace them. There is a plastic pot. It is filled with peat-free compost. And the reason we use peat-free compost is because it is absolutely unsustainable to use anything else. So peat-free compost, I'm using Silver Grow, made by Melcourt, which in the UK is readily available. You can look up their website and it'll tell you, there's a map that'll tell you where your nearest supplier is, where you can go and buy it. I use Silver Grow for seed growing, seed germination and taking cuttings. I use Dalefoot for mulch. So where hello is, how peculiar. Where have I put the cutting? Oh well, we'll have to not use, perhaps I used it all up in my previous demo. Okay, well let's use something else. Here, luckily I have many things. So here is a salvia, a cutting from a big chunk of cut stem from a salvia amistad. And the skills I'm going to show you work across the board. So anything you want to take a cutting from, you can do similar things. So lovely long stem. The salvia amistad has a lovely scent. When you bruise the leaves, it smells like a blackcurrant, I think. And it has a lovely blackcurrant colour as well. And in a pot, it is considerably taller than me. I'm only 5'2". So but it's a lovely plant, and it'll work its way through a border. And the leaves and the flowers, on a gloomy day like today, it doesn't really show, but they catch the light really beautifully. Lovely, quite acid green leaves. Oh, all together, winning. So if I wanted to take a cutting from this salvia amistad, I would look at it and think, where will I take the cutting? From where will I take the cutting? I'll learn English at the same time. And can you see how there are side shoots coming out here? Perfect cutting material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut with my scissors just below where those side shoots join the main stem. Can you see? There. Ready, steady, snip. think that's out of the way. So I've cut here. Sorry about my muddy arm there. I'm going to take off those 2 leaves. I don't need those. This is where the root is going to take. And I'm going to cut, and I'm going to pull these side shoots off. That wasn't very successful, but it has given me a bit of a heel, which is where it's joined. And you can see it's a bit rough material here. That's where the root's going to come from. And so I'm going to also, because I want my cutting to use all its energy to send roots down, I'm going to snip out the growing tip. And you see how it's got these quite big leaves? I don't want it to wilt. I don't want them to wilt. So I'll cut half the leaves off. But I must leave a little bit of leaf so that it will be able to photosynthesize. Say that after me. Photosynthesize. And I'll stick it in the side of my pot. I don't use rooting hormone. You can if you like. Here we have it again. Now, this one I'm going to do slightly differently because I think this works better. And this is, gardeners will argue about this. So that's where I cut it off before. I'm now going to cut into the join where the stem joins the side shoot. And that has given me a nice kind of clump of material. That's hopefully where the roots will come. This is where, if you like rooting hormone, you would dip this in the rooting hormone. I'm not going to bother because I've been taking cuttings without rooting hormone for years. And so I'm not going to bother. But you might, because you might find it reassuring. So I'm going to snip out the top. I've got 2 leaves. Snip the leaves in half. And pop that in the side of the pot. Now, there's good reason. Seed cuttings, rooting cuttings, like being put into the side of the pot. And I think there's all sorts of discussion about why they have to go against the side of the pot. But I think one of the reasons is because it forces the roots that they grow downwards to look for water. So they're not going to be sending roots sort of up here where it might be a little bit drier. They'll send them down where there hopefully will be a bit more water. And also it means that we, the gardener, can soon see, when I say soon, a couple of months, a little white shoot coming out the bottom, little white root, which will reassure us that our seedling, our cutting has rooted. So I'm going to fill this pot probably with 4 or 5 of these little they're not seedlings, they're cuttings. 4 or 5 cuttings so that it looks a bit like this. And I'm going to put them in a tray. Here's what I prepared earlier. Like this. And I can have, various different little pots of cuttings. I've got some lavender here, which I'm gonna finish filling up the pot. And I can do the same with rosemary. I've got other salvias. I'm gonna do lots of cuttings. This tray will then go in the shade by my polytunnel until there's a threat of frost. For the moment, we're still mid-August, so we've got plenty of autumn to come. I'm not going to put them in the greenhouse at the moment, it's too hot. I will water them from underneath. So a tray like this is dead handy because I can then pop them in the tray, put a couple of inches of water, let them have a drink, only if they're looking very dry. And I'll show you how dry. This is a rooted cutting I took in the spring. I knocked the top off off another plant and I just chucked it in a pot and it took really nicely. And you can see how dry I keep it. Did you hear the compost falling out? That is really dry and actually could do potting on, but it's dry enough that you can hear the compost falling off. Don't over water. People say to me, oh, but I can take the cuttings all right, but then they die. Chances are you're over watering. Water from underneath, never water from on top, because you're going to risk there being too much water up here, and then the poor little plant will just rot. But also, I don't, and you can, put any grit. You know, lots of gardeners will put grit or vermiculite or perlite or something on the top, which again, the idea is that it stops the surface of the compost from drying out, but stops the plant, the neck of the plant being too wet. Each to their own. You know, you can do what you like. But that is a very simple way to take cuttings, and it's the way I've been taking cuttings for years, and it works very well for me. I will then have to keep them frost-free through the winter, and in the spring, so I'll put them in my very cold greenhouse, it's not heated, or I might even have them in here, which isn't heated. There's a nice big windowsill though, so they get a bit of light. And in the spring, I will check for roots, pop them on, and that's next year's lovely scented pelargoniums outside the front door thing. So, thank you very much for joining in. I hope this hasn't been long and very boring. I hope you've been amused and inspired. I will be taking cuttings from now until the first frost, so I've got a couple of months to keep going, but I thought I'd do this now so that if you don't know how to do it, you might be inspired. And have a lovely evening. It's Friday night, so I may have a glass of wine, may not, may. If you've enjoyed this video, please do subscribe. There's a subscription button somewhere, a bell icon somewhere, which will tell you when our next videos are coming. And if you are grateful for the free information, you can always buy me a coffee, and the link is in the bio. Obviously, you're not buying me a real coffee. But it's like, you know, thanks very much for the free advice. Can I buy you a coffee? Yes, I'm not going to see you, but you can give me the value of buying me a coffee, and you'll be surprised how helpful it is. Anyway, enough of this rabbiting on. Have a lovely evening, and I expect to see lots of new plants. Bye. Look at that. 25 little plants and room for plenty more. They don't take much room, and I'll pop them on in the spring now. They'll just sit there all winter, slowly growing roots.